Welcome back to the channel. Summer is supposed to be a time of joy and laughter. But what happens when the sun sets and the darkness creeps in? Join me as we delve into 3 terrifying true stories that will make you rethink your summer plans. From chilling encounters in the dead of night to eerie fairgrounds shrouded in fog, these tales will send shivers down your spine. But before we dive into the horror, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story that could haunt your dreams. It was the summer of 2015, and the small town of Maplewood was buzzing with excitement as residents prepared for the annual summer fair. Families would gather in the town square sharing laughter, enjoying carnival rides, and indulging in sweet treats. However, this year would be different. This year, darkness would cast a long shadow over the festivities. At the center of the unfolding events was Sarah, a bright and spirited 17-year-old who was excitedly helping her parents organize their food stall for the fair. On the evening of July 15th, Sarah and her friends, Jake and Emily, were preparing to head to the fair after finishing their chores. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon, creating a picturesque summer evening. "Are you guys ready? I can't wait for the Ferris wheel," Sarah exclaimed, her excitement contagious. "Yeah, I'm going to win you that giant stuffed bear, Sarah," Jake teased, flashing her a confident grin. As they arrived at the fairgrounds, the vibrant lights and sounds filled the air, creating a sense of joy that was almost tangible. Laughter echoed as children ran past them, clutching candy apples and cotton candy, while the smell of fried dough wafted through the air. The trio quickly got lost in the festivities, riding roller coasters and playing games, each moment more exhilarating than the last. But as the sun sank deeper into the night sky, a heavy fog began to roll in, enveloping the fairgrounds in an eerie haze. "Is it just me, or is it getting kind of creepy out here?" Emily said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "It's just the fog," Sarah reassured her, trying to shake off the ominous feeling settling over them. "It's summer, it's supposed to be fun." However, as the night wore on, strange things began to happen. Unexplained shadows flitted through the fog, and the cheerful sounds of laughter were replaced by an unsettling silence. "I think we should head back," Emily suggested, glancing around nervously. "Oh, come on. It's just a little fog," Jake said, dismissing her concerns. "Let's go check out the haunted house." Reluctantly, Sarah and Emily agreed, hoping that the thrills of the haunted house would distract them from the growing unease they felt. They approached the entrance, a dilapidated structure adorned with cobwebs and creepy decorations. As they stepped inside, a chill ran down Sarah's spine. The air felt heavier, and the shadows seemed to dance along the walls. They walked through the dimly lit corridors, startled by sudden jump scares and eerie sound effects. But just as they were about to exit, Sarah noticed something strange, a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. She turned to look, but there was nothing there. "Did you see that?" Sarah whispered, her heart racing. "See what?" Jake asked, focused on the exit. "Never mind," she replied, shaking her head. "Let's just get out of here." As they stepped back into the fairgrounds, they noticed that the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. The once vibrant lights flickered ominously, casting long shadows that stretched across the ground. "Maybe we should really leave now," Emily said, her voice shaking slightly. Suddenly, the loudspeaker crackled to life, announcing, "Attention everyone. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we regret to inform you that the fair will be closing early tonight." Panic surged through the crowd as people began to disperse. Confusion and fear etched on their faces. "What's going on?" Sarah wondered aloud. Before they could react, they heard a commotion near the food stalls. A crowd had gathered, whispering and pointing. The trio moved closer to see what had captured everyone's attention. As they pushed through the throng, a chilling sight met their eyes. A young girl, no older than 8, was standing in the middle of the square, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. She clutched a teddy bear tightly to her chest, her voice trembling as she said, "I saw him. I saw the man in the shadows." The crowd gasped, murmurs rippling through the spectators. "What man?" someone asked, voice low and cautious. "The man who took my brother," the girl cried, tears streaming down her face. "He was watching me. I saw him in the fog." Sarah's heart sank as she exchanged worried glances with Jake and Emily. "We need to find her parents," Sarah said urgently, scanning the area for any sign of the girl's family. Before they could act, a deep, guttural voice boomed from the back of the crowd. "Nobody leaves. The fog is hiding something dangerous." A tall figure emerged from the darkness, silhouetted against the flickering lights. The crowd gasped again, instinctively stepping back as the man advanced, his face hidden in shadow. "Who are you?" Jake demanded, his voice trembling. "I am here to warn you," the man replied, his voice low and ominous. "Something has awakened in the fog. It's not safe here." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her curiosity piqued despite her fear. The man stepped closer, revealing a haunted look in his eyes. "There's a reason this fair hasn't been held in years. The last time it happened, several children went missing, never to be seen again." The atmosphere thickened with tension as the crowd held its breath. The little girl clung tighter to her teddy bear, trembling as she glanced around. "Do you think it's happening again?" Emily whispered, her voice barely audible. Before the man could respond, the lights flickered once more, plunging the square into darkness for a heartbeat. When the lights returned, the man was gone, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. "What just happened?" Sarah said, her heart racing. "We need to find a way out of here," Jake urged, gripping Sarah's arm tightly. "Let's go find the car," Emily suggested, her voice trembling. They made their way through the thinning crowd, the oppressive fog thickening around them. As they reached the parking lot, they felt an unsettling chill in the air, almost as if the fog was alive and reaching for them. They fumbled for their car keys, but as Sarah searched her pockets, panic set in. "Oh no, I think I left my keys at the food stall." "Seriously?" Jake exclaimed, frustration creeping into his voice. "I'll go back and get them," Sarah said, trying to sound braver than she felt. "Are you crazy? You can't go back there alone," Emily protested. "I'll be quick, just wait here," Sarah insisted, her resolve hardening. Reluctantly, Jake and Emily agreed, and Sarah turned back toward the fairgrounds, the fog swirling ominously around her as she walked. The sounds of the fair faded into an eerie silence, each step echoing in the empty space. As she approached the food stalls, she felt a sense of dread wash over her. The area was deserted, the lights dimmed to an unsettling glow. "Where are you, Tease?" she muttered to herself, rifling through her bag. Just then she heard it, a soft whisper carried on the wind, "Help me." Her blood ran cold. "Hello? Is anyone there?" she called out, her heart pounding in her chest. But there was no response, just the sound of the fog rolling in, wrapping around her like a shroud. Suddenly, she caught sight of movement in the shadows, a figure lurking just beyond the reach of the light. "Who's there?" Sarah demanded, her voice trembling. The figure stepped into the light, revealing a boy around her age, his clothes tattered and dirty. His eyes were wide with fear. "You need to leave. He's coming for you." "Oh?" Sarah asked, her pulse racing. "The man in the fog," he said, glancing around nervously. "He takes people, one by one." Panic surged through Sarah. "Where's my brother?" he suddenly cried, looking past her, desperation etched on his face. "Wait, what? You have a brother?" she asked, confusion mingling with fear. "He went missing last summer during the fair," the boy shouted, his voice breaking. "You have to help me find him." Before she could respond, a deep laugh echoed through the fog, chilling Sarah to the bone. "You're too late," it taunted. "He's mine now." Terror gripped Sarah as she turned to run, sprinting back toward where she had left Jake and Emily. The fog felt alive, wrapping around her legs and pulling her back, but she fought against it, adrenaline propelling her forward. "Sarah," she heard Jake shout, his voice filled with panic. She burst into the parking lot, gasping for breath. "We need to go. Now," she cried, tugging at their arms. "What happened?" Emily asked, eyes wide with fear. "There's something out there. Something in the fog," Sarah panted. They ran toward their car, but as they reached it, Sarah froze in horror. "Where's the boy?" she gasped. Jake and Emily exchanged confused glances. "What boy?" Jake asked. "The boy who warned me," she exclaimed, panic surging through her. But before they could respond, the fog thickened, enveloping them completely. They could barely see each other, the darkness closing in. "Get in the car." In the summer of 1996, a group of friends from Chicago decided to head out for a weekend camping trip before the new college semester began. Rachel Miller, a 22-year-old biology major at Northwestern University, had been looking forward to the trip all summer. She was joined by her boyfriend Alex Carter, 23, an architecture student, along with their close friends Mark Stevens, 22, and Lisa Turner, 21. Their destination was Devil's Lake, a secluded, forested campground near Baraboo, Wisconsin, known for its jagged cliffs and eerie, mirror-like waters. Rachel had camped there once before with her family when she was a child, but back then, it had seemed more like an adventure. Now, as an adult, something about the place felt off. Darker, more mysterious. They left Chicago early on the morning of August 14, 1996, in Alex's beat-up Honda Civic. The drive took them through quiet back roads and long stretches of nothing but trees and empty fields. As they got closer to their destination, cell service became spotty, and the road signs fewer and farther between. It was clear that this place was truly off the beaten path. They arrived around 1 p.m., the sun high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the dense woods surrounding Devil's Lake. The heat of the summer day was oppressive, the air thick and humid. They quickly set up camp in a designated clearing near the edge of the lake, excited to relax, swim, and hike. As they set up their tents, Lisa couldn't shake the eerie feeling creeping up her spine. "This place is a little too quiet, don't you think?" glancing around at the thick wall of trees that bordered their campsite. Mark laughed, brushing off her concerns. "That's the whole point, Lisa. No distractions, no noise, just nature." Rachel, however, felt a similar sense of unease. The silence was unnerving. It wasn't just the absence of people. There were no birds chirping, no rustling leaves, nothing. The lake, normally a popular spot for campers and hikers, seemed unusually deserted for such a warm, clear summer day. That night, after a day of swimming in the lake and hiking the nearby trails, the group sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows and swapping stories. They stayed up late, laughing and drinking, until one by one they drifted off to bed. By midnight, the fire had burned low, and the campsite was quiet, save for the occasional crackling of the dying embers. Around 2 a.m., Rachel was jolted awake by a noise outside her tent, a sharp, high-pitched scream that echoed through the still night air. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. It was a human scream, that much was clear, but it sounded distant, like it came from deep within the forest. She listened intently, her body tense with fear, but the scream didn't come again. Rachel turned to wake Alex, shaking his shoulder gently. "Alex, did you hear that?" she whispered. Alex groaned, rubbing his eyes. "Hear what?" "There was a scream from the woods," she said, her voice trembling. Alex sat up, now fully awake. He listened for a few moments, but there was nothing, just the oppressive silence of the forest. "I didn't hear anything, Rach. Maybe it was an animal or something." But Rachel wasn't convinced. The scream had sounded too human to be an animal. Just then, they heard rustling outside, followed by the sound of footsteps crunching through the dry leaves. The footsteps were slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was walking in circles around their campsite. "Do you hear that?" Rachel whispered, her voice barely audible. Alex nodded, his face tense. He grabbed a flashlight from beside his sleeping bag and unzipped the tent quietly. "Stay here," he whispered to Rachel. "No, wait," she hissed, grabbing his arm. "Don't go out there." But Alex had already slipped out of the tent, his flashlight cutting a narrow beam of light through the darkness. He scanned the perimeter of their campsite, but saw nothing. The footsteps had stopped, leaving only the eerie silence behind. Suddenly, Mark's voice called out from the other tent. "Hey, did you guys hear that?" Lisa emerged from their tent, wide-eyed and visibly shaken. "There was something outside," she whispered. "It sounded like someone was walking around the campsite." Alex walked toward them, keeping his flashlight trained on the surrounding woods. "I don't see anything," he said, though his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Maybe it was just an animal. But Rachel knew what she had heard. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't her imagination. The scream, the footsteps, it was too deliberate, too real. The group decided to stay awake for a while longer, sitting by the fire, with their nerves on edge. The hours dragged by, but nothing else happened that night. Eventually, exhaustion took over, and they all returned to their tents, though none of them slept well. The next morning, August 15, 1996, dawned bright and sunny. as if the events of the previous night had never happened. But the group was uneasy. Lisa was the first to suggest cutting the trip short. "I don't feel safe here," she admitted as they gathered around the fire for breakfast. "Something about this place just feels wrong." Rachel agreed, but Mark and Alex were more skeptical. "We're probably just freaking ourselves out," Mark said. "It's a big forest. There are animals, noises. It's normal." Despite the uneasy atmosphere, they decided to stay one more night. But the second night would be far worse than the first. A few years ago, a man named Jack recounted an eerie summer trip that has stuck with him ever since. Jack and his girlfriend, Emma, were in desperate need of a break from their hectic city life. They found a listing for a remote cabin by a lake, promising solitude, peace, and gorgeous scenery. It seemed perfect. The cabin, located deep in the northern woods, was about a 3-hour drive from their home. The directions led them down narrow, winding roads that grew increasingly isolated. There were no other homes or signs of civilization in sight, and the deeper they went, the more uneasy Jack felt. He couldn't shake the sense that they were heading somewhere they weren't meant to be. When they finally arrived at the cabin, it was more rundown than the pictures had suggested. The windows were clouded with dust, and the wooden steps creaked under their feet. The place looked like it hadn't been lived in for years. Still, Jack and Emma tried to brush off the weird vibes. They were determined to enjoy their summer getaway. The first day went smoothly enough. They unpacked, swam in the lake, and tried to enjoy the peace and quiet. But by sunset, the atmosphere had shifted. The warm, inviting feel of the place turned cold as the sky darkened. Jack noticed something strange as he looked out over the lake. Far across the water, at the edge of the woods, a small figure was standing, motionless. It looked like a child, but there was something off about it. At first, Jack thought he was seeing things, maybe just a trick of the light. But when Emma came to join him at the window, she gasped. "Do you see that?" she whispered. Jack nodded, his heart pounding. The figure was still there, unmoving. They tried to rationalize it. It had to be a neighbor, right? Maybe a kid who wandered too far from home. But there were no other cabins nearby, and they hadn't seen a single person since arriving. Jack's unease grew, but Emma convinced him it was nothing. They locked up for the night and went to bed. The next morning, the figure was gone. Jack felt a little silly for letting his imagination get the better of him. But as the day went on, small, unsettling things started to happen. They found strange footprints by the shore, larger than a child's but too small to be an adult man's. Then there were the noises. Twigs snapping in the woods, the sound of rustling leaves as if someone, or something, was watching them from just beyond the tree line. By the third night, the tension was unbearable. Jack and Emma decided to leave early the next morning, cutting their trip short. But that night, something happened that would haunt them forever. They were awoken by a loud banging on the cabin door. Jack leaped out of bed, adrenaline surging through him. Emma was frozen, staring at the door in terror. It was 3 a.m., pitch black outside, and there was no reason anyone should be there. Jack grabbed a flashlight and cautiously approached the door. The banging continued, louder now, more frantic. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice shaky. No response, just the relentless pounding. With shaking hands, he opened the door a crack, shining the flashlight out into the night. But there was no one there. The banging had stopped, and the silence that followed was even more terrifying. Jack stepped outside, shining the light in every direction. The beam caught movement. Someone was running into the woods, too fast for Jack to catch a glimpse of their face. He slammed the door shut and locked it. Emma was already packing their bags, her hands trembling. They couldn't stay another minute. By sunrise, they were gone, racing down the empty roads back to civilization. Later, Jack found out that the cabin had a dark history. Decades ago, a family had lived there, a couple with a young daughter. One summer, their daughter had gone missing near the lake, never to be seen again. Locals believed her spirit still wandered the area, looking for something, or someone. As the summer nights draw near, remember that darkness lurks beneath the laughter and warm glow of the sun, waiting to claim its next victim. These chilling tales remind us that every shadow could hide a secret, and every whisper might carry a warning. What would you do if you were in one of these terrifying scenarios? I want to hear your thoughts. Share your reactions in the comments below. Your story might just be the next one we explore. If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't just keep it to yourself. Smash that like button and share this video with your friends. Let's see who can handle the horror. And if you're new here, welcome to our dark little corner of the internet. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to never miss a tale that could haunt your dreams. Until next time, remember, the darkness is always watching, and you never know what might be lurking just out of sight.